Hi, this is Dr. Dorenzo. I want to welcome you back to our course. Today we're going to talk about Component 2, Shared Parenting, Parenting Roles, and then a subtopic of parenting roles. We're going to talk about positive parenting, and we're going to go through each different age group. I'm going to cover lots of material in this component, so I just want you to sit back, relax, but also make sure that you have the printout for the quiz so you can write down some answers as we go through this material. So let's talk about the importance of shared parenting and what the research says. And when we talk about shared parenting, we're talking about when there is visitation with both parents. And the goal is certainly to maximize time with each parent and with two healthy parents. Okay, certainly if one parent is unhealthy and dysfunctional, we want to mitigate the influence of that parent or try to make that parent healthier so the child will benefit from a relationship from two healthy parents with the maximum amount of time with both of them. So let's get into this. So as you may imagine, extensive research has been conducted to understand the effects of divorce on children. Dr. Linda Nielsen discusses shared parenting after divorce in her study and her recap of a review of shared residential parenting research in the Journal of Divorce and Remarriage, 2011, which collectively summarizes the research on the subject. Here's what the research shows. Children of divorce benefit most when both parents are actively engaged in their lives across a wide range of daily activities, and when parents have an authoritative rather than a permissive parenting style. And what authoritative really means is that we set limits, but it's also very warm. Okay, so we give warm and support, but we also have boundaries with kids, and we do set limits with them, and there are consequences. Not harsh limits or consequences, because that would be authoritarian rather than authoritative. So given this limiting one parent's time to weekends or to brief weekday visits is less likely to benefit the children because of the kinds of activities that build strong parent-child bonds and promote authoritative parenting are less likely to occur. So again, I mean, it's not just about we often talk about quality and focus on, there's a lot of research that talks about quality of time being so important. But let's remember that in order to have high quality relationships, we also need to ensure that there's enough quantity of time. Because it's in like taking kids to school, picking them up, tucking them in at night, taking them to their friend's house, spending time on the weekend, having dinner with them. I mean, all that time accumulates to quantity and opportunities for different types of interactions. Number 3, these ordinary routines and rituals include cooking together, running errands, getting ready for school, working together on homework, shopping, doing chores, and being together in spontaneous, unstructured ways. So certainly we need lots of opportunities to do that. All right, here I have a graph or a chart from Nielsen's research from that specific article. And she outlined some of the research that was reviewed, the different studies. And it looks at shared parenting and different factors that were improved because a child spent a great deal of time with both parents. Now, all of these studies did not look at all of these other factors. So they may have only looked at psychological and emotional benefits or behavioral or improvements with the father, improvements with the mother, or improvements with the physical health of the child. So depending on the study, depending on what variables they were looking at, but as you can see that in all of these studies, there were positive outcomes regarding a certain factor for children that spent a great deal of time with both parents. Certainly, if you want to, I've read all of these articles. They're all great articles. You may want to write a couple down if you're interested. Remember, you can always come back to this slide. To understand more about the benefits of shared parenting, I would invite the reader to review another one of Dr. Linda Nielsen's articles titled Shared Physical Custody, summary of 40 studies on outcomes for children in the Journal of Divorce and Remarriage from 2014. And again, I mean, this really summarizes even more studies that looked at shared parenting. So in Nielsen compared research outcomes for children over the last 25 years who have lived with each parent at least 35% of the time. Shared parenting is typically considered anything more than 35%. So it's not necessarily 50%, but anything more than 35%. To those spending less than 35% of time with one of the parents. And she found, like in her earlier research, that children in shared parenting and families had far better outcomes on measures of emotional, behavioral, and psychological well-being, as well as better physical health and better relationships with their fathers and their mothers too. These benefits remained even when there were high levels of conflict between the parents. And here is one of the issues, if any of you has litigated or are litigating. Many people believe that when there's high conflict, that a way that you mitigate high conflict between parents is you have less visitation with one parent. So this minimizes exchanges, minimizes discussions for the kid about certain issues about the kids. But what we know now is that shared parenting often is a mitigating factor too that helps with high conflict parents. So again, every family is different, so you got to figure out what is best for your family. Certainly no one rule applies to every family. All right, what is your parenting responsibility after divorce? Let's talk about what shared parenting is as well as sole responsibility. So in terms of shared parental responsibilities are legal and social. Shared parental responsibility is the legal term that describes the roles of the ex-spouses. When shared responsibility is designated, then both parents equally retain full decision-making rights to their children. Sometimes, if one parent has not been involved, or there is great conflict, or one is proven to be less well equipped to make sound judgments, one parent will be designated as having sole parental responsibility. This means that the person will make the academic, social, and healthcare decisions of the child. Now, in certain cases that I've been involved in as a psychologist helping people with parenting coordination or through to help them mediate decisions post-divorce dissolution, sometimes in these real complicated cases, sometimes the shared parental responsibility will be specified for different things. So maybe if the parents have argued about medication for ADHD and they've been unable to make a decision, and then one parent follows what all the doctors recommend and the other parent doesn't, then a judge may rule that one parent has decision-making responsibility around medication or health care, and then they both share all of the other responsibilities. So it certainly can get very complicated. The goal is for divorcing parents to have shared parental responsibilities for all of the issues. So let's talk about shared parental responsibility again versus sole parental responsibility. So shared means both parents will share equally in the major decisions affecting the welfare of the children, including decisions regarding education, religious training, healthcare, discipline, childcare, etc. And it's included in your parenting plan, so it's outlined in the final judgment, whereby the terms are clear as to what is expected of each parent. So in the final judgment of dissolution, it will identify who has shared, or if it's shared, or if one has sole. And sole parental responsibility means the court provides one parent the right to make all decisions related to the children without consultation or input from the other parent. This is usually awarded to a parent only if the opposing parent is a danger to the child or has proven themselves unworthy to share parental responsibility of a child. For example, one parent is in jail, one parent has abused the children, or one parent's just unfit and has shown not to make good decisions. So what is your parenting responsibility after divorce? Well, the goal is for both parents to be involved with their children and to be of sound judgment, of course, where both can make decisions jointly and share the important task of decision-making responsibility. Parents should share equally in all major decisions about their children's lives, including but not limited to where they go to school, what doctor treats them, what religion they practice, and where they live. The two most challenging obstacles, very important, to shared parenting are loving and respecting your ex-spouse and how to properly discipline the children. Okay, again, loving and respecting your ex-spouse. It's important to facilitate and promote that relationship and send positive messages about the other parent. And then learn how to properly discipline the children. Odds are when you were married, you also had trouble agreeing on what discipline would be effective. So when you're divorcing or divorced, that becomes even more of a challenge sometimes. So let's talk about the summary on developing healthy parent-child relationships. And this has to do with, can kids develop well if they're spending more time with one parent or with both parents? And a lot of this has to do with the attachment studies because, early on in the 60s, 70s, there was even in the 80s, the strong belief that a child could only bond with one parent and couldn't bond the same with two parents. And what we know now is that children often do bond equally to both parents, and they don't necessarily need to have one bond in order to bond with another parent. So there's not necessarily a hierarchy. And I may be skipping ahead a little bit, but if you think about kids today, they have relationships with grandparents that often are just as strong as the relationships with their parents. And then when you have two working parents, kids often spend a lot of time in daycare. And daycare workers or nannies often become primary attachments for kids. So we now know that kids can have lots of attachments. And again, there's not necessarily a hierarchy. So even very young children. Okay, it certainly starts with young children. So parents, consistent, predictable, frequent, affectionate, and sensitive behavior toward their infants is key to forming meaningful, secure, and healthy parent-child relationships. So you got to be consistent, got to be predictable, got to have frequent time with children, got to be affectionate, and got to be sensitive. Having secure attachment with at least one parent provides children with enduring benefits and protections that offset mental health risks of stress and adversity. So this is, what if the other parent's not healthy? Okay, that doesn't mean the child's going to end up being unhealthy. As long as the child has at least one healthy attachment, kids do pretty well. And we often talk about the good enough parent here. But often both parents are not good, and this is when kids are raised by a grandparent or another healthcare worker or another healthcare provider. But kids need at least one healthy attachment. Certainly two or more is even better. So having a relationship with two parents increases a child's odds of developing at least one secure attachment. The majority of children from preschool through college are dissatisfied, some even distressed, with the amount of contact they have with their fathers after divorce and with the intervals between contacts. And this comes from the research when it was looking at kids where they didn't spend a lot of time with their fathers, and they were with their mothers for the majority or for an extended amount of time. So here these adult kids felt like they should have spent more time with their father when they were young children. Policies and parenting plans should encourage and maximize the chances that children will enjoy the benefits of being raised by two adequate and involved parents. And again, we have no basis for rank ordering parents as primary or secondary in their importance to child development. So, I do child custody evaluations or social investigations, and I've had many cases where, the father served as the primary caretaker, either because the mother worked more or the mother was not capable of providing that attachment. And the fathers were the primary caretakers and, took on that traditionally more maternal role. But we know from the research that either parent can provide this attachment as long as they're sensitive, nurturing, responsive, loving, sensitive, all of those things to their kids. or to their child. Full-time maternal care is not necessary for children to develop normally. Children, that last point. Children's healthy development can and usually does sustain many hours of separation between mother and child. This is especially true when fathers or grandparents care for children in place of their mothers. This is how we know from this research too, because we know that even when a mother, predominantly is taking care of a child, and maybe the father is away, that kids do spend a lot of time in daycare, often even more time in daycare than with their parents. And based on the daycare studies, kids in daycare do fine too. They seem to still have healthy attachments. So these findings support the desirability of parenting plans that are most likely to result in both parents developing and maintaining the motivation and commitment to remain involved with their fathers than traditional schedules allow. So generally daytime visits every other weekend with perhaps one brief midweek contact. So, certainly, and I'm not here to promote the 50-50 presumption. I'm just here to promote maximizing time with two healthy parents. Okay, because that is what the research shows. And again, these findings do not necessarily translate into a preference for parenting plans that divide young children's time exactly evenly between homes. So, it may not be 50-50, it may be 60-40. Or some variable like that. All right, let's talk about positive parenting tips. And again, we're going to run through a lot of information here. And we're going to go from infants all the way to adolescents, because many of you will not just have one child, but will have multiple children in different age groups, and it's important to know this. So positive parenting tips for infants. Talk to your baby. She or he will find your voice calming. Okay, this is not necessarily in dealing with divorce, but you can apply this to divorce, but also let's apply it just as being a positive, loving parent. Answer when your baby makes sounds by repeating the sounds and adding words. This will help him or her learn to use language. Read to your baby. This will help him or her develop and understand language and sounds. Sing to your baby and play music. This will help your baby develop a love for music and will help his or her brain development. Praise your baby and give him or her lots of loving attention. Spend time cuddling and holding your baby. This will help them feel cared for and secure. Play with your baby when he or she is alert and relaxed. Watch your baby closely for signs of being tired or fussy so that he or she can take a break from playing. That's part about being responsive. Distract your baby with toys and move him or her to safe areas when he or she starts moving and touching things that they shouldn't touch. Take care of yourself physically, mentally, and emotionally. Parenting can be hard work. It is easier to enjoy your new baby and be a positive, loving parent when you are feeling good yourself. And certainly, when you're going through a divorce, you got to take care of yourself so you can be available and responsive. Because what we know is when people go through divorce and they're stressed, they're often depressed and less responsive to their children, especially to their infants who are so demanding of time. All right, positive parenting tips for toddlers. Okay, for the toddler, 1 to 2 years. Parent reading to toddler on a daily basis. So really important, read to your kids on a daily basis. Ask him or her to find objects for you or name body parts and objects. So like you're in a store, point things out. Keep it simple, of course. Ask where the brush is. Like if you're at a Home Depot, right? Maybe, it might be a little early for a screwdriver, but maybe a brush or the person. Where's the salesperson? Maybe that's not such a great example, but, certainly body parts, hands, toes, noses, feet, things like that. Play matching games with your toddler, like shape sorting and simple puzzles. Encourage your toddler to explore and try new things. Help to develop your toddler's body language, your toddler's language by talking with him or her and adding to words, okay, that they start. So, for example, if your toddler says, Baba, Baba, okay, you can respond, yes, you're right, that is a bottle. Okay? Encourage your child's growing independence by letting him or her help with dressing themselves and feeding themselves. Respond to wanted behaviors more than you punish unwanted behaviors. Use only very brief timeouts. So again, I mean, the 1 year of age should equal how many minutes a child is in timeout. Always tell or show your child what he or she should do instead. So, when you're changing the behavior, you say, no, we don't want to do that. You're going to be in timeout, or no, don't do that. But then you shift and say, this is what, honey, this, and then reinforce that behavior. Encourage your toddler's curiosity and ability to recognize common objects by taking field trips together or to the park or going on a bus ride. All right, so more. How about the 2 to 3 year old toddler? Set up a special time to read books with your toddler. Again, reading. And why? I mean, you hear the voice, it's calming, teaching them to comprehend words and teaching them to be able to visualize and imagine stories, right? Really important. Encourage your child to take part in pretend play parade, or follow the leader with your toddler. March around the house. Help your child to explore things around him or her by taking her or him on a walk or a wagon ride. Encourage your child to tell you his name and age. Teach your child simple songs like Itsy Bitsy Spider or other cultural childhood rhymes. And give your child attention and praise when he or she follows instructions and shows positive behavior. And limit attention for defiant behavior like tantrums. So, the attention is a reward, so look away. Okay? Don't reinforce it. Don't entertain it. Don't pay attention to it. Teach your child acceptable ways to show that they're upset. All right, how about preschoolers, 3 to 5 years of age? Continue to read to your child. Imagine that. Nurture their love for books by taking them to the library or bookstore. Let your children help with simple chores. Encourage your child to play with other children. Have play dates. This helps them learn to value sharing, and friendship. Be clear and consistent when disciplining your child. Explain and show the behavior that you expect from him or her. Whenever you tell them no, follow up with what he or she should be doing instead. Again. Okay, so it's correct and then teach. Correct and then teach. Help your child develop good language skills by speaking to them in complete sentences and using grown-up words. Help them use the correct words and phrases. Help your child through the steps to solve problems when they are upset. Again, correct and teach. Give your child a limited number of simple choices. For example, deciding what to wear, when to play, and what to eat for a snack. So, limited choices. 2 outfits. Maybe 3. Okay, 2 or 3 food choices. Not too many. All right, how about the middle childhood, 6 to 8 years of age? Show affection for your child. Recognize their accomplishments. Really important. Catch them doing the right thing and praise them. Help your child develop a sense of responsibility. Ask them to help with household tasks such as setting the table. Talk with your child about school, friends, and things that they look forward to in the future. Talk with your child about respecting others. Encourage them to help people in need. Help your child set their own achievable goals. They'll learn to take pride in themselves and rely less on approval or reward from others. Okay, make sure it's achievable. Make sure you follow up with them too. Make sure they're meeting the need and see what else, meeting the goal and see what else they need, what help they need to achieve it. Help your child learn practice by letting others go first or by finishing a task before going out to play. Encourage them to think about possible consequences before acting. Make clear rules and stick to them, such as how long your child can watch TV, or when they need to go to bed. Be clear about what behavior is okay and what's not okay. Again, it's so important for parents when they're setting a rule, they got to reinforce the rule. Do fun things together as a family, such as playing games, reading, and going to events in your community. All right, more. We got some more for the 6 to 8-year-olds. Do fun things together as a family, such as playing games, reading, and going to events in your community. Get involved with your child's school. Meet the teachers and staff and get to understand their learning goals and how you and the school can work together to help your child do well. Go to meetings, go to conferences. Make sure there's 2 parents there if possible. Continue reading to your child. As your child learns to read, take turns reading to each other. You don't have to let them read the whole time. Take turns with the book. Remember, you're creating great memories with them. They'll have memories of your guys' time reading together, these classic childhood stories. Use discipline to guide and protect your child rather than punishment to make him feel bad about himself. Follow up any discussion about what not to do with a discussion of what to do instead. Again, I can't stress this because we often say no, 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 constantly correcting and not teaching. Okay, teach the desired behavior. Praise your child for good behavior. It's best to focus praise more on what your child does. You worked hard to figure this out, than on traits that you can't change. Like you are smart. You want to teach them that they can be smarter. There's a lot of research that suggests that we teach kids about the concept that their brain gets smarter with the more knowledge that they gain. So they're in control of that rather than it's something that's fixed. The next one, support your child in taking on new challenges. Encourage them to solve problems such as agreement with another child on their own. Okay? Want to teach them to be self-reliant. Encourage your child to join school and community groups such as team sports or to take advantage of volunteer opportunities. How about 9 to 11 years of age? We're getting up there. Spend time with your child. Talk with your child about friends, their accomplishments, and what challenges they will face. Be involved with your child's school. Go to school events. Meet your child's teachers. Okay, very similar to before. Encourage your child to join school and community groups such as sport teams or to volunteer for a charity. Help your child develop his own sense of right or wrong. Talk with him about risky things friends might pressure him to do. Now's the time to do it. Like smoking or dangerous physical dares. This is when kids get in trouble. Okay, and they're really trying to impress their friends. So the peers certainly start becoming very important figures. Help your child develop a sense of responsibility. Involve your child in household tasks like cleaning and cooking. Talk with your child about saving and spending money wisely. Here we can start teaching about fiscal responsibility. Meet the families of your child's friends. Really important. Really important. This is when you're starting to send your kids over to spend the night at other people's homes. Really important to know the parents and to know them well. You don't want any issues, or you want to minimize any issues. Talk with your child about respecting others. Encourage her to help people in need. Talk with her about what to do when others are not kind or are disrespectful. This is when we're teaching them to deal with bullying, which is starting to accelerate in these years. Help your child to set his own goals. Encourage him to think about skills and abilities he or she would like to have about how to develop them. Make clear rules and stick to them. Talk with your child about what you expect from him or her when no adults are present. If you provide reasons for rules, it will help her know what to do in most situations. Okay? So it's not just because I told you so. This is where we start teaching them a rationale. So we're helping them we're teaching them moral development. Use discipline to guide and protect your child instead of punishment to make him feel badly about himself. When using praise, help your child think about their own accomplishments. Saying you must be proud of yourself rather than simply I'm proud of you can encourage your child to make good choices when nobody is around. praise her. So again, making it not about you, but about them. Okay, so it becomes internal. And a lot of these things come from your verbalizations to your kids. You're programming your children. Talk with your child about the normal physical and emotional changes of puberty. It's a confusing time. Encourage your child to read every day. Talk with him or her about their homework. Be affectionate and honest with your child, and do things together as a family. All right, young teens, 12 to 14. Be honest and direct with your teen when talking about sensitive subjects such as drugs, drinking, smoking, and sex. Meet and get to know your teen's friends. Show an interest in your teen's school life. Help your teen make healthy choices while encouraging them to make their own decisions. Respect your teen's opinions and take into account their thoughts and feelings. It's important that they know you are listening to them. When there is a conflict, be clear about goals and expectations, like getting good grades, keeping things clean, and showing respect. But allow your teen input on how to reach those goals, like when and how to study or clean. Okay, so when we start needing to empower them, we certainly don't want to break them. Okay, we want to empower them, and we want to let them make some of the decisions, even when they're fighting us and resisting us. That's part of this journey. And we have to pick our battles and let them be able to stand up to us as long as it's in a respectful manner. Let's talk about the older teenagers, 15 to 17 years. Talk with your teen about their concerns and pay attention to any changes in behavior. Ask them if they've had suicidal thoughts, particularly if they seem sad or depressed. Asking about suicidal thoughts will not cause them to have these thoughts, but it will let them know that you care about how they feel. And seek professional help if necessary, especially if they've engaged in any kind of cutting behavior, made threats to do such, or they do talk about hurting themselves or anybody else, or not wanting to be around. Show interest in your teen's school and extracurricular interests and activities, and encourage them to be involved in activities such as sports, music, theater, and art. Encourage your teen to volunteer and become involved in civic activities in their community. Compliment your teen and celebrate their efforts and accomplishments. Show affection for your teen. Spend time together doing things you both enjoy. Respect your teen's opinions. Listen to them without playing down their concerns. So again, it's really important to hear them. They got to feel like they're being listened to, and you're taking their opinion. You're taking their opinion into the equation. It's really important. And certainly, we know how rough those years were and that we survived. But remember, when our teen is in that situation, that is their whole entire life. So don't minimize what their concerns are. And as part of being a teen, you don't have forethought. You don't see yourself in the future. You can't understand that somehow this doesn't impact you because, your present is your entire life. So, certainly don't be dismissive, but just be empathic and try to help them explore it and come up with solutions to whatever the problem is. So again, encourage your teen to develop solutions to problems or conflicts. Help your teenager learn to make good decisions. Create opportunities for them to use their own judgment, and be available for advice and support when they need you. If your teen engages in interactive internet media such as games, chat rooms, and instant messaging, encourage him or her to make good decisions about what they post and the amount of time they spend on these activities. If your teen works, use the opportunity to talk about the expectations, responsibilities, and other ways of behaving respectfully in a public setting. Talk with your teen and help him or her plan ahead for difficult or uncomfortable situations. Discuss what they can do if they're in a group and someone is using drugs, or they're under pressure to have sex, or they're offered a ride with somebody who's been drinking. It's certainly okay today to have an account for Uber for teens. Make sure your child never feels pressure to get into a car, maybe you can make it cool to use Uber instead. So there's no reason that kids need to be in a car with somebody that's been drinking or using drugs today. They no longer have to call you. They can call Uber or Lyft or some other company. So go ahead and create an account, give them the app on their phone, and let them call. Respect your teen's need for privacy. So, online it's okay to friend them on Facebook or Instagram so you know what they're posting, but you don't stalk them. They'll find out that you're stalking them, and they'll feel very disrespected and hurt. Encourage your teen to get enough sleep and exercise and to eat healthy, balanced meals. All right, so some more about positive parenting. And this is about kids of all ages. Okay? So discipline involves teaching responsibility and self-control. Using an authoritative parenting style, as discussed in the research above, really important. So authoritative means that you're warm, okay, and you offer support, but you also have high expectations. Permissive means no demands and not a lot of support. There is a lot of support and love, but there are no demands. Authoritarian parenting is the parenting you absolutely don't want to be expressing, and that is high demands, no support or little support. So be warm, nurturing, and respectful of your children. So again, authoritative, that's like having high demands, but also high support, high love. Okay, high support. Encourage open communication and seek children's input. Be sensitive to their needs and opinions. Provide them with clear rules and expectations. Be the person who is ultimately in charge. Okay, you're still the parent. Reward good behavior with praise, hugs, and smiles. Ignore annoying behavior. Use timeout for dangerous or destructive behavior that can't be ignored. Okay, and it's got to be swift. And impose consequences when rules or limits are broken. All right, more about positive parenting. We're almost done with this component. Tangible rewards are powerful teaching tools that can change undesirable behavior, such as a sticker chart for little children, screen time, iPads, television for tweens and teens, and then driving privileges or their phone for teenagers. With difficult teens, use the no-lose conflict resolution method based on the Gordon model developed by Dr. Thomas Gordon, a fellow psychologist. This is a method of resolving conflict in which both the parent and the child get their needs met. This method's core skills include active listening, iMessages, shifting gears, and no-lose conflict resolution. So certainly it's a win-win. The foundation of good discipline is a good relationship and mutual respect between the parent and the child. So let's talk about the steps of no-lose conflict resolution or win-win conflict resolution. So you got to define the problem. So you're doing this together. Let's define the problem. Let's brainstorm solutions together. We're going to work on this together. Let's evaluate the solutions. Okay, which one's going to work? What's the outcome going to be? Let's choose a solution together. Let's plan for and take action. And let's check the results. Let's see how we did. Let's see if that worked. Children can always benefit from learning to manage and resolve conflict. Okay, for your little scientists, teach them this method and tell them it is the scientific method.